We'll just add a little more whipped cream to the pie. Oh gosh. No problem. We'll just add a little more whipped cream to the pie, That's so funny. Hey friends, what's up? And what do you want me to tell you? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Gimel, Daf 3 of Masechta Hagiga. Friends, Daf 3 is gewaldig. So far, Hagiga is gewaldig. What do you want me to tell you? So, anyways, we continue talking a little bit about, if you can hear, if you can walk, all those kinds of things. Then we get to some interesting agaritas and some, anyways, just kind of continuing the discussions of Re'iyah, on the Olas Re'iyah on sort of a high level, and then some interesting agaritas, some very interesting stuff, friends. Let's go weiter over here. Okay, so in Daf Gimel, Amud Aleph, 4 lines into the page, Ma'ishna le'inyan Re'iyah de P'tirei, u'ma'ishna le'inyan Simcha de Mechayve. Friends, catch us all up to, back up to speed, I guess. What were we talking about at the end of the daf yesterday? We were saying that when it comes to a fellow who can hear but cannot speak, or can speak but cannot hear. It's funny, it gets confusing to say them, but it's really not that hard. They could do one and not the other, I guess. Anyways, should we just say that? Should we just say one and not the other? It makes it easier than trying to remember if you just said if they could speak or they could hear. Somebody who can either speak or hear, as opposed to speak and hear. Anyways, so we said that they're potter from Re'iyah, from offering an Olas Re'iyah. However, they're chayav in Shamei Simcha. So the kasha is, how come they're chayav in Olas Re'iyah? How come they're potter from Olas Re'iyah but chayav in Shamei Simcha? Wow. It's funny, this stuff isn't that hard, but it is a little confusing. You got the hearing, you got the speaking, you got the Re'iyah, you got the Olas Re'iyah, the Shamei Simcha, the Shamei Hagiga. It's like a lot of different variables, but anyways, I hope I don't mix them up. So it's fracti amar mashnalin Re'iyah de P'tirei. So how come these people could, do either or, hear or speak? How come they're potter from Olas Re'iyah, u'mashnalin Simcha de Mechayve, and how come they're chayav to offer Shamei Simcha? So the Indian Re'iyah gam. Where am I? Re'iyah de P'tirei, ma'ashnah in Simcha de Mechayve. So the Indian Re'iyah gomer Re'iyah mehakol. So the reason why they're potter from Olas Re'iyah is because we have a Gezerah Shava, that it says Re'iyah by Olas Re'iyah, and it says Re'iyah by Hakol. Who can tell me what Hakol is? Hakol is that the year following Shemitah. Right now we're in Shemitah. So this upcoming Sukkot, so I think it's the day after Sukkot, right? I believe. What does Rashi say? The part is Hakol. Where am I? Okay, so at the end of Shemitah. Wait, so when was it? Wait, it was Motzai. I think it was on Sukkot then. I think it was Sukkot and Motzai Shemitah. So I guess this coming Sukkot is going to be Hakol. I think in Eretz Yisrael, maybe the president does it, I think, or something. Anyways, I don't know. So by Hakol, so all of the nation comes to hear the king read from the Sefer Torah. So the pasuk says, Hakol asam, gather together the nation, anoshim v'anoshim v'ataf, the men, the women, and the children. And the pasuk says, Bivo kol Yisrael leiraos, and it says in the context of Hakol, when all of the Yidden will come to be seen. Okay, fine, givaldik. So it says to be seen by Shalosh Regalim. It says to be seen by Hakol as well. Great. So how do we know though that by Hakol, if you can either speak or hear one but not the other, how do we know that you would be potter? How do we know? The pasuk says, "L'man yishmu, l'man yilmedu," so that they will hear, and so that they will learn. Vitanya, we learn in the Bible, "L'man yishmu." So when it says so that they will hear, in the context of Hakol, to the exclusion of somebody who can't hear, even if they could speak, but if they can't hear, so then they're potter from Hakol. U'leman yilmedu, and when it says that they will learn, prat l'shomeh v'enu medaber, to the exclusion of somebody who can hear, however, he can't speak. Now, effectively, Gemara, lo mishtoi lo gomer. 1 second. the pasuk says so that they should come and learn, and therefore we're excluding from the fact that we want them to come and learn that to exclusion of somebody who can hear but cannot speak. So we say what? Just because he can't speak means that he's unable to hear? V'ahanu, what? No, just because he's unable to speak means that he's unable to learn. He's incapable of learning. V'ha, I don't know what the heck I'm saying. There's so many different variables. We're talking about somebody who is able to hear, cannot speak. He's how about this? Let's call him a mute, right? A person who's a mute. So he's mute. So just because the person is mute, does that mean that they can't learn? V'ahanu trei ilme dahavu b'shevavuse de Rebbe. There were two people in the neighborhood of Rebbe who were mute. They didn't speak. Bnei Barte de Rebbe Yochanan ben Gudgada. They were the grandchildren of, right? They were the sons of the daughter of Rebbe Yochanan ben Gudgada. V'amila bnei Achde de Rebbe Yochanan. Those who say that they were the nephews of Rebbe Yochanan. The Chol Emes dava Ayil Rebbe the Bein Midrasha. That every time that Rabbi Yehuda Anasi would go to the Beis HaMedrash, Havu Ayil Yazve Kame. These two fellows would sit in front of Rebbe. Umenai de Bereshayu, they would nod their head. Umerachshin Sif Vasayu, they would their lips would move. And so it was Keilu, right? It seemed like they were absorbing the material and they were learning, but it happens to be that they were unable to speak. Avay Rebbe Rachme Elayu, Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, he prayed for these individuals, ve'itzu, and they healed, right? They became able to speak. Ve'ishtikach, dahavu gmira ilchsa, ve'sifra, v'chula tamuda. And it turned out that they were mamish big Talmidei Chachamim. They knew Mishnayos, they knew Sifrei, right? The Medrash Halacha on Vayikra and Bamidbar and Dvarim, v'chula tamuda, and all of the Talmud. So new. So we're trying to understand. It says in the context of Hakel, right? Leman Yishmu, Leman Yilmadu, that they'll hear and they'll learn. So it says that you have to be able to hear to the exclusion of somebody who's unable to hear. You have to be able to learn, and we want to say that that's the exclusion of somebody who's unable to speak. We're saying, but just because somebody's unable to speak is not an indication that they're unable to learn. As we see from these two individuals with Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. Omer Marzutra Karbe Leman Yilamedu. So says Marzutra, well, yes, it's read Leman Yilmadu. However, technically speaking, it could be, you could understand it as Leman Yilamedu, that they should be able to teach others. And of course, if they're unable to speak, they're unable to teach others, because that requires speaking. Rav Ashi Omar says, Rav Ashi Vada Leman Yilamedu, and Rav Ashi says, and that is certainly correct. That must be it. It must be that it means Leman Yilamedu, that they should be able to teach others. Disakadaitich Leman Yilmadu, because if it enters your mind that it means Leman Yilmadu, that they should be able to learn. V'cheven de lo mishtoi lo gomer, and if we want to say that, and if they're unable to talk, then they're unable to learn. But then again, if you're going to say, what's the significance of the fact that they have to be able to hear? Well, in order to learn, you have to be able to hear. Well, right? And right, that's already learned from Leman Yishmu, right? It says Leman Yishmu, Leman Yilmadu. We're saying, right, if we're saying that the significance of Leman Yishmu, of being able to hear, is that, well, that if you could hear, then you can learn. And if we're saying that, and therefore that excludes somebody who's unable to hear. And if we're going to say that Leman Yilmadu means that they have to be able to learn, and if we want to say that somebody who's unable to speak is unable to learn, well then Leman Yishmu and Leman Yilmadu are teaching the same exact thing, that they have to be able to learn. Rather, it must be that no, it's understood as Leman Yilamedu, to teach. That meaning Leman Yishmu means that they have to be able to learn, and therefore that excludes somebody who's unable to hear, because somebody who's unable to hear is unable to learn. But also Leman Yilamedu, they also have to be able to teach other people, and therefore if you have somebody who's unable to speak, even though he can learn, but he's unable to teach, so therefore he's going to be pater from Hakel as well. So that is how we see that people who are unable to hear and also unable to speak, they are pater from Hakel, and therefore since it says Re'iyah by Hakel, it says Re'iyah by what else? By Shalosh Regalim. So therefore people who either can't hear or can't speak are pater from Oles Re'iyah as well as from Hakol. Okay, where are we? Okay. Amr Tanchum says, Tanchum Cherish be'oznu achas. Ho ho, friends. What do you think of that kasha? What if a fellow is deaf in one ear? Pater min Re'iyah. So says Reb Tanchum that he's pater from Re'iyah. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, be'ozneim, in their ears, which is plural, and therefore you have to be able to hear in both ears, because it says by Hakol, it says, right, Tikra HaTorah as the Torah is neged kol Yisrael be'ozneim. So therefore, I guess they're pater from Hakol, and Mamela they're pater from Re'iyah. By be'ozneim, iboyle be'ozneim d'chul Yisrael. So the Gemara says, wait a second. Be'ozneim doesn't teach me that you have to be able to hear in both ears. It means that be'ozneim, in the ears of all the people, all of Ala Yidden, all the Jewish people. How we neged kol Yisrael nafka? You say no, that is learned out from neged kol Yisrael, in the presence of all the Yidden. So what do we learn out from be'ozneim? That they have to hear from both ears. Neged kol Yisrael avamina afagav de l'shami. Yeah, but if we only learned it out from neged kol Yisrael, I might think neged kol Yisrael regardless of if they can hear or not. So therefore, kasav rachmana be'ozneim v'hu d'shami. So the Gemara wants to argue that, well, if it would only say neged kol Yisrael, then I would think opposite all the Yidden, whether they could hear or not. Therefore, it has to say be'ozneim to say that they have to be able to hear. No, no, that we learned out a few lines ago. That's learned out from the man yishmu. They have to be able to hear. So we learn out that we do hakol in front of all the Yidden because it says neged kol Yisrael. We also learn that they have to be able to hear from the man yishmu. So what do we learn out from be'ozneim? It means that they have to be able to hear with both ears. And if they can only hear from one ear, if they're deaf in one ear, so then they're pater from hakol. And memela they're pater from Re'iyah. The Amr of Tanchum says, Tanchum chiger biraglo achas. If a fellow is lame in one leg, pater min Re'iyah, so he's pater from Re'iyah. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, regalim. Right? The pasuk says shalosh regalim, 3 regalim. Regalim are as plural, 2 legs. Therefore, if you're lame in one leg, so then memele you're pater from Re'iyah. V'ha regalim mibayle prat levale kabin. But one second, regalim is coming to exclude people who have like amputees who have like a peg for one of their legs. So that is what regalim is coming to exclude. No, ahumi paimim nafka. No, that is learnt out from paimim. That right says shalosh paimim bashana. Right, 3 times in the year. Titania, as we learned in the Brisa, paimim ein paimim ela reglaim. That paimim is reference to legs. V'cheinu omer, and the pasuk says tirmasena regel ragle oni paime dalim, that you trample upon legs, the legs of poor people, paime dalim, and also the legs of the destitute. So we see that paimim is a reference to legs. V'omer, the pasuk says mayofu paimayich banailim basnodim, that how beautiful are your legs in shoes, the daughter of a baron, and therefore, so we see that paimim is legs. We also see paimim banailim, that the legs are in shoes. So we see that to exclusion of essentially somebody who has a peg for a leg, because if they have a peg, you wouldn't put shoes on that. So therefore, to the exclusion of somebody who has a peg for a leg is from paimim, right? Shalosh paimim bashana, and the exclusion of somebody who's lame in one leg, therefore, is coming from regalim. That regalim means that you have to have 2 legs, but if you're lame in one leg, then you would be pater from Re'iyah. Darish Rave made a drasha. Ma'adichsev, what does the pasuk mean? Mayafu paimayach banailim basnodim. How beautiful your legs are in shoes, the daughter of a baron. Kamenoin raglein shal Yisrael. How beautiful are the legs of the Yidden b'shah sha'olin l'regel, when they all go to be ola regel, to be pilgrims in Jerusalem on the festivals. Basnodiv, the daughter of a baron, Bitul shel Avram Avinu, the daughter of Abraham, Shenikra Nodiv, that he was called a baron. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Nedivi Amne Asafu, that the barons, I think a Nodiv is a baron. I don't know. Isn't that what they call it? Who is the baron in the north? Baron Edmund Rothschild? Is that him? Like in Zichron Yaakov? So don't they call him the baron? the Nadiv, the Nadiv. I don't know. Let's assume it's a baron. What do you want me to tell you? So the barons of the nations gathered together. Eloke Avram, the nation of the God of Abraham. Eloke Avram, Eloke Yitzchak. Wait, Yaakov. 1 second. The God of the God of Abraham, but not the God of Isaac and Jacob. Eloke Avram Shaytchil Legerim. But the God of Abraham, who was the first of the converts, and a convert is like a so a nadiv, right? It's like a baron, but I guess like somebody who's a philanthropist, somebody who's very giving, who is what's a nadav? A nadav is like a promise, a giving, a gift. I don't know, a gift, a commitment. So it's like kind of a commitment. It's kind of giving of yourself to convert to Judaism. So therefore, that's why it says the nation of the God of Abraham, who was the first of the converts, who are like giving of themselves to become a yid. Amr of Kaina says of Kahana, Darish of Nosim bar Manyomi Mishum Reb Tanchum. So once already we're talking about Reb Tanchum in the past few lines. So we mentioned the following drasha that we already learned to Masechta Shabbos. Tichsiv is the pasuk. My Tichsiv, what does the pasuk say? What extremely famous. What does it mean by Yosef HaTzadik that he was thrown into an empty pit that didn't have any water in it? No, if already the Torah is describing the pit as being an empty pit, Mimela, there's no water in it. There's nothing in it. It's empty. Well, it was empty from water, but it was full of snakes and scorpions. Now that is exciting. That there was a story that Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka and Rabbi Elazar Chisma went to visit their Rebbe, Rabbi Yoshua Bifkian. Love it. I love this stuff. It's gewaldig. I don't know what's so gewaldig about it. It just is. I don't know. Rabbi Yoshua in his hometown of Pekin. Okay, yeah. What do you want me to tell you? So Rabbi Yoshua says to them, "No, what chiddush was there today in the Beis HaMedrash? Tell me, Epis, Hayom today." And it says Rashi that it was Yom Tif. It was Yom Tif, and therefore they went to greet their Rebbe on Yom Tif. And Rabbi Yeshua says, "No, tell me, Epis, what were they learning in the Beis HaMedrash today?" Amrlo, they said to Rabbi Yeshua, "Talmidecha anu." What do you mean? We're going to teach you something. We're your students. Meimecha anu shosim. We drink your waters. Who are we to teach you what they were saying in the Beis HaMedrash? Amar lohem. So Rabbi Yeshua says to them, "Afal pichen." Even so, it's impossible to have a Beis HaMedrash without a chiddush. Shabbos Shami Oisa. Shabbos Shor Beloz Ben Azariah Oisa. Oh, it gets better and better and better. Friends, where's that from? That's from way back when. That's from, Givaldig. Lemaisa, I was just in a groove with somebody from Indonesia. And every so often on grooves, people are curious about my podcast. They don't realize what it is. I mean, I try to explain to them. Half of it's in Aramaic and Hebrew, and somebody said, I think somebody said that maybe it was a little complicated to understand because of the Aramaic and the Hebrew. I said it's complicated to understand even if you speak Aramaic and Hebrew. But anyways, she pointed out so she was in Indonesia, and she said, "I checked out your podcast. Was the first episode in Bali?" I said, "Yes." She noticed it from the coffee in the background, that was coffee from Bali. That was funny. Anyways, so back, although this stuff, I think I was already back in Eretz Yisrael even. This stuff I was talking Eretz Yisrael. Anyways, but way back when, at the very beginning of Babylon Talmud, so we learned the story with Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yoshua. And the whole thing, Rabbi Gamliel, had Rabbi Yoshua stand up, whatever it was. They ended up removing Rabbi Gamliel from being the Nasi. They replaced him with Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, but they ended up doing a rotation where it would be 3 weeks Rabbi Gamliel, 1 week Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and it says there in the Gemara and that's what it means, Shabbos Shal Mi Ha'isa. whose sort of shift was it that week? And that's exactly what Rabbi Yoshua is saying. Shabbos Shemiu Oisa knew who was in the rotation this week. Was it Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah or was it Rabbi Gamliel? Shabbos Shor Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Oisa, and they responded to Rabbi Yoshua that it was Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah's week. So Rabbi Yoshua says to them, no, okay, fine, Gevaldik. So what were they saying in the Beis HaMedrash? Amulo. So they said to him, the Parshas Hakel. They were talking about Hakel. Uma Darash Bas. Okay, Gevaldik. So what did they teach about Hakel? Hakel Asa'am Hanoshim Vanoshim Ve'atov. Gather together the nation, the men, the women, the children. Im Anoshim Boim Lomod. So if the men are coming to learn, Noshim Bois Lishmo, the women are coming to hear, Taf Loma Boin, why are the children coming? To give a reward, so that their parents will be rewarded for bringing them the children. Right, for bringing the children. Omer Loim Magolis Tova Isa Biyedchim Vikashim La'abdim Mimeni. And Rabbi Yeshua says to them, you had something, a beautiful pearl over here, and you were gonna hold that back from me. Va'od, and more so Darash, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah explained, Es Hashem Amarta Ayom, V'Hashem Amircha Ayom, that you have made the Eibishter yours today, and the Eibishter has made you his today. Amiloim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael, the Eibishter says to the Yidden, Atem Asisuni Chativa Achas Ba'olam, you have made me into one Shevach, one praise in the world. V'ani Ase Eschem Chativa Achas Ba'olam, and says the Eibishter to the Yidden, I'm going to make you one praise in the world. Atem Asisuni Chativa Achas Ba'olam Dichsiv, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elkeinu Hashem Echad. You have made me one praise in the world, as it says, listen, O Israel, the Eibishter is a God, the Eibishter is one. It says the Eibishter, I'm going to make you one, what did I say? Shevach? What was Shevach? What did I just say? Praise in the world. Shenemar, as the Pasuk says, who is like your nation Israel, but one nation in the land. And additionally, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah darshan tevichachom kidarvonis, that the words of the sages are like ox goads, and like nails that have been nailed. These people gather together. They all come for one shepherd. How come the words of Torah are compared to an ox goad? Just like this ox goad, just like the ox goad keeps the ox on track for its furrows, so that the ground, the land, can bring life to the world. So also the words of Torah navigate, I guess, their learners from the ways of death to the ways of life. But maybe you could make the argument, but a darvin, an ox goad is movable. I guess that's something that is not so desirable when it comes to Torah, I guess. We want it to be concrete, I guess. I have divrei Torah metaltlin, so maybe I'll argue that divrei Torah are also movable and I guess not so concrete. Tamalom masmeiris. Therefore we say, like nails. Nails you nail into a wall and it stays. Hopefully. Imamasmer zeh choser velo yaser. But one second, I can make the argument that when a nail goes into the wall, it takes away from the wall. Also, I'll say maybe that divrei Torah sort of make things lacking, not more. Therefore, it also says that are planted. Just like a plant grows and produces. Also, the words of Torah are fruitful and multiplicious, whatever, a lot. By the asupis, elu tamidei chachamim, those who gather together are the Torah scholars. Sheyoshvin asupis, that they gather together in groups, v'oskim b'Torah, and they study Torah. Halalu mitam, I love this. Halalu mitam v'halalu mitayrin. Some people say, some of them are saying this is Tomei, some of them are saying it's Torah, alalu osrin, valalu matirin, some are saying it's osr, some are saying it's mutter, alalu poslin, valalu machshirin, some are saying posel, some are saying kosher. It's a machlokes. Everyone's got different opinions over here. Shem yomer adam. And maybe a fellow will say, so heach ani lo me'teira me'ata, how am I supposed to learn Torah? I don't know what's flying. Mutter, osr, posel, kosher, tamei, no. What do I do? Talmud Omer, therefore it says, Kulam nosnu meroa echod. It says it all comes from one shepherd. Kel echod nisanon, that one God gave these halachis. As Rashi points out, nobody in the Beis HaMedrash is saying, well, this God says this and that God says that. No, it's all the same God, and they're just trying to understand what this one God is saying. Panes echod amorin, it all comes from Moshe Rabbeinu, right? No prophet is going to come and sort of deny Moshe Rabbeinu. There are certain things that everyone agrees upon. Mipi adon kol hamaysim baruch hu, that Panis Echad Amar Mipi Adon Kol Hamaysim Baruch Hu, that Moshe Rabbeinu said it in the name from God. The pasuk says Veidaber Elokim es kol dvarim ha'eleh, that God spoke all of these words. Av ato ase oznecha kafar keses, therefore make your ears like a mill hopper. Friends, you're on your own with a mill hopper. I think it's some kind of thing friends, you're on your own with a mill hopper. Good luck. Also make your ears like a mill hopper. And get a heart that understands. No, try to understand, hear them out, right? It's not just these people say Torah, these people say Torah. Try to hear them out. Hear out both sides. As divrei osim, as divrei matirin. Try to hear out who's saying osir and who's saying mutter. As divrei posim, as divrei machshirin. As those who say pasul, those who say kosher. Right? Try to hear out all sides and figure out for yourself. Right, and Givaldik. Peloshan Haza Omer Loim Eindor Yosim Shabbalozov and Azariah Shari B'Socho. To which Rabbi Yeshua respond, "Wow, this is incredible. There is no such thing as a orphaned generation when you have somebody like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah." Friends, what do you think about all that? I thought it was good, right? V'limdulei. In fact, the Gemara, 1 second. How come they had to do the shtickle dance, right? How come Rabbi Yeshua says to them, no, what were they teaching the Beis HaMedrash? They said, well, I don't know, you're the Rebbe, who are we? Why didn't they just tell him? He asked what they learned at the Beis HaMedrash, why didn't he tell them? So, Mishum Maisa Shohayo, because of a story. The Tanyas will learn in the Beis HaMedrash, Rabbi Yossi ben Damascus, friends, who's Rabbi Yossi ben Damascus? Oh wait, no, I knew I was making a mistake. 1 second. Who was the donkey? Oh, Rabbi Yossi de Minyukris. Is anybody dressing up as the donkey of Rabbi Yossi de Minyukris for Purim? I don't know what I'm doing yet for Purim. These days it's hard for me to figure out what I'm going to dress up as. I got to figure something out. I think over the years I've been collecting all sorts of things that maybe I could put to use, but these days, whatever, let's go weiter. So Maisa Rabbi Yossi ben Damascus. So there's a story with Rabbi Yossi ben Damascus. He went to visit Rabbi Eliezer in Lud. Omar lo machidush hayu bebeis hamedrash hayom. So Rabbi Eliezer says to him, "No, tell me, Apis, what were they saying in the Beis Hamedrash?" Omar le nimnu v'gamru. They decided in the Beis Hamedrash, Ammon Moav ma'aser ma'aser oni b'shvius, that Ammon and Moab, i.e. the Ever Yarden, on the other side of the Jordan River, so on Shvius, on Shemitah, they would separate Trumas, so they would separate Meiser Oni on Shemitah, right? In general, on Shemitah, there is no Meiser Ani, there's no Meiser Sheni, there's no Meiser Ani. I don't think there's any Trumas and Meisers at all on Shvius. But they decided that Ever Yarden, that Ammon and Moab is not considered Eretz Yisrael with regard to Shemitah, and they would have Meiser Ani over there. Omar lo, Rabbi Eliezer responded, Yosi pshot yodecha, stick out your hands, v'kabel einecha, and receive your eyesight, i.e., and go blind. Pashat yodav v'kibel einov, and then basically Rabbi Yossi ben Damascus became blind because he said that. Bachor Rabbi Eliezer then cried and said, "V'amar sod Hashem lirev uviso liyodiyam," that the secrets of God are to those who fear Him, and His covenant to let them know. Omar lo, let's go weiter for a second. So Rabbi Eliezer says to Rabbi Yossi ben Damascus, "Lechemer loim, go and tell the rabbis, al tachoshu l'minyanchem, don't don't think twice about your decision. Kach mikublani mi Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. I have received from Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Sheshama mi Rabbo, Rabbi mi Rabbo. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, because Rabbi Eliezer, of course, was a student of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai heard it from his Rabbi Hillel, who heard it from his Rabbi Ageshmai and Avtalion, all the way back. Hilchsa Moshe Misina to Moshe Halacha Moshe Misina Amonu Moab Maaser Ma'aser Ani Bashvius. Then we're going to go weiter for a little bit, and then we'll kind of zoom out and explain exactly what's going on. That Ammon and Moab, Ma'aser Ani B'Shvius, that's Halacha Moshe Sinai, that Ammon and Moab separate Ma'aser Ani on Shemitah Matam. How come? Harbe Krochim, friends, you listening? Harbe Krochim Kavshu Ole Mitzrayim, that there were many cities that the people who made Aliyah from Egypt, i.e., the first time that the Yidden entered into Eretz Yisrael, and then the second time that the Yidden entered into Eretz Yisrael before the second temple, so they didn't sort of capture these cities again. Let's go weiter. Because the first time that Eretz Yisrael was made holy, it was only for that time, but not for the future. And therefore, when they came for the second temple, they didn't make these areas holy so that the poor people would have what to eat during Shemitah. Again, let's go weiter for another 2 lines. So after Rabbi Eliezer sort of calmed down a bit, may it be the will that the eyes of Yossi ben Damascus should be able to see again. And sure enough, he was able to see again. Friends, a lot of stuff just happened there. Let's talk about what we just read just now, which is Kedusha Rishona, right? So it's Halacha Moshe Misinai, says Rabbi Eliezer, that it's Halacha Moshe Misinai, that basically when the Yidden entered into Eretz Yisrael with Yoshua, so any part of the land that they made holy, they only made holy temporarily for that time. And when the Yidden were exiled, after the destruction of the first temple, so then the holiness went away. And then when the Yidden came back with Ezra, right, when they came back for the second temple, so what they reconsecrated became holy from then on. But the parts that they didn't reconsecrate were not holy. And therefore, it's Halacha Moshe Misinai that when the Yidden came back to Eretz Yisrael before the second temple, so Ammon and Moab, those lands in the other side of the Jordan, they left alone. They didn't make holy so that the poor people would have what to eat on Shemitah. Now, what exactly happened in this whole story with the blind? What happened? So Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi what was his name? Rabbi Yossi ben Damascus went to visit Rabbi Eliezer at his house. Rabbi Eliezer asked what they learned in the Beis HaMedrash, and Rabbi Yossi ben Damascus, he says that that it was decided today in the Beis HaMedrash that Ammon and Moab they separate Ma'aser Ani on Shemitah. Rabbi Eliezer, I guess, got a little bit flustered, because what do you mean that they decided in the Beis HaMedrash? Halacha Moshe Misinai. And he kind of made Rabbi Yossi ben Damascus blind because of it. And then at the same time he says, Sod Hashem lireah v'vrisa l'odiyah. But at the same time, while he got sort of flustered, he also says, wow, it's incredible that the secrets of God are to those who fear Him, i.e., that in the Beis HaMedrash, even though they didn't know about the halacha Moshe Misinai, they got it right. Right? They decided the right halacha. They decided just like the halacha Moshe Misinai. And therefore Rabbi Eliezer says, don't think twice about it. You're right, that's the halacha, that in Ammon and Moab, they separate Ma'aser Ani on Shemitah. Ultimately, Rabbi Eliezer then calmed down, and Rabbi Yossi ben Damascus got his eyesight back. However, to answer the Gemara's initial question, why did the students of Rabbi Yoshua say, we're your students, we learn from you, and Rabbi Yoshua had to insist, say, hey, just tell me what they learned in the Beis HaMedrash, because of this story where Rabbi Eliezer asked Rabbi Yossi ben Damascus, hey, what happened in the Beis HaMedrash? And he told him, and it ended up, the whole thing where he lost his eyesight, he got it back. So to kind of avoid a repeat, that is why they kind of initially sort of refrained from telling Rabbi Yoshua what they had learned in the Beis HaMedrash. Tana Rabbanon, the rabbis taught, Ezu shoite what is considered a shota, a person without intelligence, that we learned in the Mishnah, is pater from Re'iyah. Hayotze yechidi b'alayla, a fellow who goes out alone at night. V'alon beveis akvaris, a fellow who sleeps in a cemetery. V'mekreas ksuso, a fellow who tears his clothing. Yeah, it's a shota. That's a fellow who has no intelligence. Itmar, it was stated of Huna Amar, says of Yudah, Achiyu kulon. You have to do all of them. Skip the next two words. Rabbi Yochanan Amar afilu ba'achas me'en. Rabbi Yochanan says you can even do one of them. Right? So Rav Huna says you have to do all three in order to be considered a shota. Rabbi Yochanan says even one of them makes you a shota. Hey chidami. So now 1 second. What are we talking about over here? Either avelu derech shtus. If he did any one of these three by way of shtus, by way of silliness, so nafilu b'chad nami. Even if you just did one of them, then if he's a shota, he's a shota. What do you want me to tell you? But if he didn't do it as a shota, if he didn't do it as a fool, then afilu kulu nami lo, right? So even if he did all three, but if it was for whatever reason, so then he shouldn't be a shota. So la'olam dika avilu derech shtus. Really, he did it by way of folly. I don't know, foolishness. V'alon beveis akvaris. However, you can sort of explain each one individually. You could technically argue somebody who sleeps in a cemetery, right? Maybe he did it because he thought if he sleeps in a cemetery, he might become a magician. I don't know, get magic. I don't know. A fellow goes out alone at night. I might think, I don't know, maybe he was very, very hot, so he went out for a walk or something. Somebody who tears his clothes, maybe he's just very, spaced out and he wasn't paying attention and his clothing just gets torn. However, since, yes, while you might be able to explain each one individually, when he does all of them collectively, then it's as though an ox that gores shor chomer v'gamol, right? An ox that gores an ox and a donkey and a camel. So even though each one individually, he didn't gore 3 oxes and 3 camels and 3 donkeys. However, the point is he gored an ox, he gored a camel, he gored a donkey. He's going to gore something else as well, right? So meaning even though each one individually might not be enough, but collectively they are enough. Amar Papa says, Papa Yishmiele le Rav Huna Hadatanya. If Rav Huna, who says that you have to do all 3 in order to be considered a shaita, if you would have heard the following brisa, Ezu shaita, who's considered a foolish fellow, Zama'abid komash and osimlo, that's somebody who loses everything that they give him, i.e., in that one thing is enough. Have a hadarbe. Rav Huna would have changed his mind, having seen that, even one thing can make you a shaita. Ibailu, they wanted to know, if we're saying that Rav Huna, when hearing about if you give somebody epis and he loses it, he would have changed his mind, is that he would have changed his mind, maybe only with regarding to somebody who tears his clothing, who have a hadarbe didamile, maybe he would say that, okay, so if you tear your clothing, so that can make you a shaita, because it's similar to like if you lose everything that you have. Or perhaps mikulu avadar, or maybe he would have changed his mind for all 3. We don't know the answer. Friends, that was daf Gimel of Masechta Hagiga. The first part of the daf, we explained how come somebody who could either hear or speak is pater from Re'iyah b'chayev from V'chayev for Shami Simcha. The answer is because when it comes to Re'iyah, we learn it out from Hakel, and when it comes to Hakel, somebody who can either hear or speak would be pater from Hakel. We also said that somebody who is lame in one leg or can only hear from one ear also would be pater from Hakel. We then had, and also from Re'iyah, we then had a bunch of interesting agaritas, some related to Hakel, some related to like what we learned by Yosef, that there was no water in the pit, but there were snakes and scorpions. We learned some interesting agaritas about listening to all sides of the machlokas and figuring things out for yourself. And we learned about Kedusha Rishon, Kitchel Shaita, below Kitchel Asulavu. Then at the end, we explained what a shota is. We said somebody who walks alone at night, somebody who sleeps in a cemetery, somebody who tears his clothing. Rav Huna says that you have to do all 3. Rabbi Yochanan says even if you just do 1. Alright, friends, that was Daf Gimel of Masechta Hagiga. I hope you enjoyed. Peace out.